A panic spreading in Puerto Rico as nearly half the population still does not have access to food, water, or power.
At the request of Puerto Rico's governor, President Trump granted a 10-day waiver of the Jones Maritime Act to allow foreign flag vessels to ferry supplies.
The administration and the president, every time that we've spoken, I've had an ask, they've delivered.
The vice president promised to pass the largest tax cut in U.S. history.
As the economy expands, we'll be able to more than pay for these tax cuts. The real answer, as President Trump loves to say, is growth.
Well, there was a really powerful moment yesterday.
Steve Scalise returning to Capitol Hill, and both parties overjoyed.
When I was laying out on that ball field, I just started to pray. At that point, it was in God's hands. I'm definitely a living example that miracles really do happen.
Players sending a message of unity during the national anthem, linking arms together.
Unity is when you put your hand over your heart and you stand up for the flag and you respect this country.
We all should stand for the flag. This is America.
I kneel for the Lord, and I stand for the flag.
Today, she's filling in for Ainsley once again. She'll be back on Monday. But thank you very much for helping us.
Yeah,
no, happy to be here.
Yeah, you're staring straight ahead at 8 more hours, Saturday and Sunday, and you had great news yesterday. Your dad's officially the U.S. ambassador to Russia, so he got quicker. He got through quicker than everybody. Unanimous, maybe even quicker than Mattis. Unanimous consent, both sides of the aisle.
It says a lot about him.
Right.
Unanimous support from the Senate, heading over to Russia to be the ambassador. Pretty easy job ahead of him, right?
Yeah,
yeah. Good luck
I can't imagine anything coming up controversial.
Yeah. Congratulations. So speaking of controversial, I mean, we're still talking about the national anthem and the NFL and kneeling. And last night was a pretty powerful moment if you were watching the Packers game.
So everyone was watching before the game, even though the Packers and Bears had the best rivalry, one of the best rivalries in sports. But we wanted to see what the players are going to do during the national anthem. And they stood, they locked arms, and the fans loved it.
The bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave? And the home of the brave.
Love that guy saluting right there. So the Packers players wanted, and they sent out word to the fans in the crowd, we're going to all be linking arms for social justice as a sign of unity. We want everybody in the audience to do the same thing, but very few did. Most had their hands over their hearts, a lot of them saying. Aaron Rodgers was trying to convince the fans that this group demonstration was necessary. He said it was all about equality. And there's a quote, he said, as much as some people want us to just shut up and play football and keep the politics to politics, sports and politics have always been intersected. Okay, that may be the case, but you know what? A lot of people don't like politics when it comes to the anthem.
I think that's
just stand up.
I think that's a veteran right there saluting. So as you said, not many in the crowd were locked in arms, but they were saluting the American flag, a few of them, and also chanting USA, USA. This is a step forward, though, Brian, when you think about where we were just last weekend, Monday Night Football even. I mean, we are not kneeling anymore.
Meetings yesterday, 25 owners got together. Select players were asked to come in to talk about a way out of this for the National Football League that is just across town here. We know this. It looks like the Patriots will be standing. It looks like the Pittsburgh Steelers have committed to standing. And it looks like the Denver Broncos have committed to standing. I think there's a couple of players in Seattle, and there's at least one in Oakland. I know that made it clear they are not standing.
Well, one of the Giants players came out and said, you know what, we had a good conversation. It was all positive, but nothing has been ironed out.
No mandate from the league or from teams, but there's directives, but not mandates. Meanwhile, let's bring in the other major story in America is the growth of the the economy. We're over 3%, and it was revised upward. That is leading to the last quarter, which was ended in June. The director of the Office of Management and Budget had to be high-fiving when he got that news. Here's Mick Mulvaney. Mick, what does it mean to people watching right now that our economy's at 3.1%?
Oh, it means one of the greatest things in politics, which is I get to go to all the detractors who's been beating up on the administration for the last couple of months and go, I told you so, which is the greatest feeling in all of politics.
It's going to be tough to keep it, though, with the hurricanes, correct?
It is, and what we'll see, we expect to see sort of a tick down because of all 3 hurricanes during the third quarter. That's typical. What's also typical is you'll see a corresponding uptick in the fourth quarter, the quarter after the hurricanes. But more importantly and more seriously, what you see now is that more folks are going back to work, jobs are paying better, more opportunities there. We're seeing that 3% growth that we've talked about since the administration started. And in all fairness, we're seeing it much earlier than we expected. I did not project in the budget that we would see 3% growth until I believe 2019. So it's actually happening faster than we expected.
Well, let's talk a little bit about taxes. We saw the president earlier in the week. We know he's going to go out and make a speech later today to the National Association of Manufacturers. Has some loud equipment drives behind you there at the White House right now. The message to the folks is you're going to cut the taxes for people in the middle class, and you're going to make it simpler, right?
Yeah, the 2 primary things for the president. Number 1, folks in the middle class will pay less, and it will be easier for them to pay. I don't think nearly enough folks have been talking about the fact that almost 90% of households, not businesses, ordinary folks, pay somebody else to do their taxes, and they won't have to do that anymore. So you pay less, and it will be easier to pay, and you won't have to pay somebody else to do it for you. That's number 1. And then number 2 is we really are focusing really hard on that corporate tax rate as we try and give companies incentives to invest in America again.
So, Mick, even though the House and Senate and the White House are on the same page on the release, on the outline, there is some turbulence on the GOP side, especially with Peter King and some people from bigger states, because you have a repeal of the individual deductions for state and local taxes. They want to represent their people, and those people are going to be negatively affected. What's your message to Republicans in the Wall Street Journal today that have an issue with that?
It's pretty simple, and it's not folks from big states, it's folks from high tax states. It's not just large population. It's this. Look, if you and I make the same amount of money, we live in the same value house, we drive the same value car, our kids go to the same schools, should we pay the exact same to help support the federal government? Shouldn't our tax burden be exactly the same? And the answer is yes, but that's not the way the world works right now. If you live in a low tax state, you actually pay higher taxes to the federal government than the exact same person does in California or New York, and that's just not fair.
Yeah, you know, the last time we had comprehensive tax reform was under Ronald Reagan, and what he did uniquely was bringing both sides of the aisle together. I mean, working with Tip O'Neill as a great example of that. We're not hearing a lot of positive praise from the Democrats, but President Trump says, look, we are determined to make this a bipartisan effort, a bipartisan deal. What are Democrats, you think they're going to come over? Is there anything in this that you think they would like?
I think there's a couple Democrats that just have already checked out. In fact, I've had a conversation with some and I've asked them, could you ever support a reduction to the corporate tax rate? And they say no, and that's sort of the end of the discussion. So many of them are so heavily invested in this talking point that anything that is good for the economy must be a giveaway to the rich, that they'll never consider voting yes. But I think you saw the president ask Senator Donnelly to go to Indiana. A couple of the senators have been out on the road with him, Democrats. Yes, we are reaching across the aisle to see if there's folks who are reasonable, who want to talk about what's good for the actual American economy and American families, and not just good for politics.
Sure, absolutely. And it's going to take a bipartisan effort to get something across the finish line for the people of the United States. You don't see that very often, Mick, you know, in Washington, particularly in the House of Representatives, except yesterday in the early afternoon, after almost 3 months away, after he was shot at a baseball field just a couple of miles away from where you are. Steve Scalise returned to a hero's welcome. I know you've worked with him for a long time in Congress. How impactful were these images of him coming back? Because a lot of people thought he would never do what he did yesterday.
Yeah, it was pretty important stuff, and I don't say this flippantly. Steve was more than just my coworker. Steve was my second baseman. I was the shortstop on that team for 6 years, and we spent a lot of times together at that field. And to see Steve not only be at work tomorrow, but to walk into the chamber, something that, in all fairness, I didn't know when that was going to happen. It was pretty powerful stuff. Welcome back, Steve. It's great to see you.
Yeah, with a huge smile on his face. He said, the one thing that changed the most for me was my relationship with God. I mean, he will never be the same after that experience. I don't think the country will be the same. Certainly not.
He said he was
Congress.
proof that miracles can happen.
Hey, Mick, you know what I was thinking? I was thinking about you, not only because he's your friend, but because you need some Democrat support. It would be better if everyone had some buy-in and there was such a feeling of unity. Is there any way the whip can build on that feeling of unity?
Sure. I mean, absolutely. And we've talked about this before. There's a lot more unity on the floor every single day that we just don't see. Day in, day out, Democrats work with Republicans. It doesn't sell. It's not glamorous. The media seems to like conflict. But I can assure you that that sentiment that you saw in the chamber there yesterday is there every single day. Certainly not at that level because it's not as emotional every single day. But we like each other in the House. I say we because I used to be there. And I think yesterday was just one manifestation of that, not the only one.
Well, it was a beautiful observation of the fact that he was back. Mick Mulvaney, the director of the Office of Management and Budget, North Lawn of the White House, where it is finally quiet there. Mick, thank you very much for joining us live.
Great to see you this morning.
Thanks, y'all.
Yeah. When the leaves start to fall and the blower goes out, are we ever going to get a word in?
It sounded like something was backing up.
Yeah. You know who we will hear from, though, is Jillian Muley with some other headlines we're following this morning.
That's right. Good Friday morning to you guys, to you at home as well. Let's begin with a Fox News alert right now. The Pentagon tapping a 3-star general to lead the hurricane relief efforts in Puerto Rico. General Jeffrey Buchanan will oversee the military response as they work to improve aid distribution on the devastated island. There are currently 10,000 federal workers, including 7,200 military members on the ground. Power, water, and gas still remain in short supply. Acting DHS Secretary Elaine Duke heads to Puerto Rico today to get a first-hand look at the damage. The Trump administration cracking down on sanctuary cities, ICE arresting nearly 500 illegal immigrants in a massive sweep this week. Operation Safe City spanned 4 days and stretched from Los Angeles to New York City. Agents targeted illegal immigrants with criminal charges or known gang affiliations. ICE made it clear people from the DACA program were not included in the roundup. U.S. diplomats could soon be pulled from the Cuban embassy after 21 Americans have mysteriously become sick while working there. Some staff members suffered hearing loss and even brain injuries from what the State Department has called a sonic attack. The Cuban government denies any involvement, but we're learning Secretary of State Rex Tillerson could shut the embassy down completely. So look at your headlines on this Friday. Send it back to you guys.
Yeah, they should shut it down after what they've done. Unbelievable. Thanks, Jillian.
Hey, Brian, someone just wrote me on social media saying, I'm watching your show, but I won't get up until Brian tells me to get dressed.
Okay, please get dressed, okay? I can see you. I need you to get dressed. All right, 12 minutes now after the hour. Coming up, a school refusing to accept books donated by the First Lady, calling them racist propaganda. Seriously? They're from a doctor.
Yeah, Dr. Seuss. Then, did fake news really have an impact on the election, or was it real news that sunk Hillary and the Democrats?
Tech giants taking Capitol Hill, Facebook, Google, and Twitter all asked to testify before lawmakers investigating ways that Russia may have used social media to influence our presidential election.
Yesterday, Twitter gave a pair of closed-door briefings to members of the House and Senate Intelligence Committees.
This is a brand new study claims fake news, hashtag, was targeted to swing states prior to the election. Here to break it all down for us, Kurt Knudsen, the cyber guy. Kurt, because we're on social media so much, Twitter, Facebook, they know so much of what we like, and they are able to target us, and that can actually turn around and bite us.
True. 2/3 of America's on Facebook. 1 out of every 5 hours we spend online is going to Facebook.
Yep.
Every single thing you're posting there, everything, is being collected and compiled into a database. So it makes you wonder, like, what is that worth? Well, it's worth a ton of money. So did this happen? Did it happen? Did all the things that are in front of Congress and the Senate right now, is this true? Well, guess what? Whether it is or it isn't, it matters in a very big way because it can happen tomorrow. It can happen today. You and I can go onto Facebook and we can very, very cleanly and inexpensively target an ad that reaches Brian and his friends, or Abby and where she's traveled over the last 5 years.
You've got to have interest, though, right?
It's so easy. No, you just have to have a credit card. So you have a little credit card and you go online and you can do this. So
that's creepy.
It is
All
creepy.
this
So
stuff
yesterday,
is creepy.
it is. So yesterday, what we found out is that Twitter came in and they said, okay, we've shut down 200 accounts because we found that they were of Russian influence. Well, it really doesn't matter. Twitter does not have the kind of influence on America the way that social media giant Facebook does. Without question, though, here's what we know. Facebook did not in any way, well, here's what I can say. Facebook most assuredly, unwittingly became a fake news machine, period.
Because
end of story.
The ad buys were bought by a non-person. There was no interaction.
Who knows who it was?
Anybody. You can get your ad approved in 15 minutes, and you'll never, a human eye might never see it.
You know what's scary? I mean, I've been on the phone. This actually happened, and I think I said to someone,
human eye might never see it.
You know what's scary? I mean, I've been on the phone. This actually happened, and I think I said to someone, I'd love to go to Greece. And then you go on Facebook, and you have ads for going to Greece, but you just said it. You didn't even Google it.
Take a look at what they know about you just right now. Here are the basics. And you know what? We've seen this before, but then you look at it again, and you go, under the circumstances right now, this is kind of wild. So age, gender, religion, your political affiliation, your education, your relationship status, what hobbies you're into, your job title, what you purchased, what your friends have purchased, what devices you use.
It sounds like Google or Facebook knows more about you than the federal government, actually, and they're collecting a lot.
Here's what I'm here to tell you. Facebook knows more about you than your best friend and your closest family members. I guarantee it. You can go on today and find, I put it up right now at cyberguy.com and also foxandfriends.com, and just search me on Facebook. I'll show you how you can see what they know about you.
I don't think I even want to see that.
Right.
I don't even know if I want that.
Yeah, you do. You want to see it.
Oh, we just found out for the first time that Abby wants to go to Greece.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I knew that.
Who doesn't want to go to Greece?
Okay, good.
All right, a Fox News alert. The top ISIS leader appearing in a chilling new audio video. What message did he just send to his terrorist followers?
Then, after last week's protest against the national anthem, our next guest pulled all of his ads from the NFL games. The founder of Check Into Cash, Alan Jones, here with why he's taking a stand.
Welcome back.
Time now for your news by the numbers. First, $95 million. That's how much a Pennsylvania company has to pay in criminal fines for hiring thousands of illegal workers. The judgment against Ashplant tree expert is the largest of its kind in U.S. history. Next, 3 former presidents, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama, kicking off the President's Cup golf tournament yesterday in New Jersey. Did you see this photo? It is the first time ever that 3 U.S. presidents have attended the event at the very same time. And finally, $0. Your morning jolt could be free today. Several places offering deals on coffee to celebrate National Coffee Day. We need a national day every single day for something, don't we?
I know we do. Meanwhile, a show of solidarity last night by the Packers and the Bears. They stood linking arms, but most importantly, they stood for the national anthem. A much different scene than last Sunday when more than 200 players protested.
And while many have expressed anger, one business owner is putting his money where his mouth is. Alan Jones, the founder of Check Into Cash and the owner of Hardwick Clothes, which he's come on the program to talk about, has pulled all of his ads from NFL games, saying he won't take the behavior, and he joins us live. Alan, what was it about the protests that you saw where 200 players last week took a knee that just drove you nuts and you said, enough already?
You know, I'm just a patriot. I've always been a patriot. I don't know what it is, but I've always been a patriot. I've been raised like that. I'm a southern gentleman from Cleveland, Tennessee, a small town of about 40,000. And I don't remember, I'm 64, and I don't ever remember anybody not standing for the national anthem. Mm-hmm. And it just went all over me. Now, I want you all to realize I'm a small fry. I'm a small player. What I'm pulling off is not a lot to them. I mean, people acting like I'm a Mercedes-Benz and I'm getting ready to take the Mercedes Stadium away from the Falcons. That's not me. We're a small-time player. But still, I'm pulling our ads regionally from, like, you know, say Fort Wayne, Indiana, and places like that.
It's a big decision. Could that be bad for business?
Well, at some point, Abby, your country comes first. But it's I didn't think about it at the time, and when I did it, I certainly didn't realize the firestorm it was causing. I simply did it, told my friends on Facebook, I'd sent it off. I went to my granddaughter's cheerleading in Chattanooga, Tennessee, 7th grade football, and when I came home, all this stuff had broke loose.
Wow, so you made your move. That's what people say will get the NFL's attention when sponsors start to move out or people start to stay home. But in the big picture, what the players want is more social justice. Do they have a point?
Not with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you will study Francis Scott Key, I mean the national anthem, when he wrote the national anthem, Francis Scott Key, at Fort McHenry, if somebody would just study that a little bit and understand why this thing was written, you know, the bombs bursting in the air is so they could see if the flag was still up. It's a great story. These guys don't know it. They just don't know.
Yeah, but you know for a fact that a lot of the players who took a knee last week, Alan, were steamed that the President of the United States made the comments about them a couple of days earlier. So regardless of you know, what they had protested in the past, racial, police brutality, racial inequality, last week it was all about protesting Donald Trump.
Well, I know, but you don't protest it with our flag. You know, it's us. I don't care what color you are.
Before or after, just not during.
We're here together. It's our country together. We stand together. It's the one thing we are together on, and I can't stand to see that split.
All right, so what needs to change? What would make you put your ads back up?
Let that quit, and they'd go back to, you know, I'm a sports fan. Jay and I are big donors, University of Tennessee. Georgia's coming to town Saturday. I'll be there. I love the pros. The Cleveland Browns is owned by a Tennessean, you know. So I look forward to being able to watch this, but they're going to have to change, and they're going to have to, I mean, if they want to lock hands or something, that's one thing.
So what you saw last night was okay?
I didn't watch it last night because I've turned it off.
Just so you know, they stood up arm in arm. You're okay with that?
If they want to hold arms, that's fine, but don't take a knee.
Gotcha.
Now, you know, in football, don't take a knee. I would never, ever take a knee if I was losing, ever.
All right, Alan Jones, thanks so much. Appreciate you telling your story.
With us, Alan.
Well, thank you.
All right, a mother refusing to get her child vaccinated now facing jail time unless she complies. Really? Can the court really make that call?
Then Rush Limbaugh sitting down for an exclusive interview with our own Sean Hannity last night. The Republican establishment, quote, doesn't want the president to succeed. Do you agree with that? Newt Gingrich is going to be asked that question. I wonder what he's going to say.
They can't afford for him to succeed with his agenda. They can't afford it. The lid's blown. The gig is over. The joke is revealed. If an outsider with no prior political experience can come in and fix messes that people have been promised would be fixed for 30 years, how does that make them look? They can't allow that to happen.
So, fascinating comment when Rush Limbaugh thinks Republicans do not want President Trump to succeed.
Well, in particular, Republican establishment. We happen to know somebody from the establishment. He's former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor, also the author of Understanding Trump, a big New York Times bestseller, and host of an online show, Defending America, Newt Gingrich. Newt, thanks for joining us. What did you make of Rush Limbaugh saying the GOP establishment does not want our president, Donald Trump, to win?
Well, let me say, first of all, I want to congratulate Abby. Her dad was confirmed yesterday to go to Moscow, and he's the only guy I know who's been ambassador to both Beijing and Moscow. So it's quite an honor for your family, and it's great that he's a citizen and your mom's a citizen willing to serve the country in those tough spots.
Well, congratulations to your family as well. I know you're going through it, too.
Right. It's a complicated process. Look, I think that, first of all, much as I admire Rush, and we've known each other many years, I think he's a half step behind what's happening. Are there some never-Trumpers? Sure. Are there some people who cause trouble? Sure. But let me give you an example. This is the postcard tax form that 85% of Americans will be able to file under the new Republican tax plan. Literally a postcard. Now, that was developed by the Trump White House, by the House Republicans and the Senate Republicans as a team. They launched it this week as a team. I think that they've learned a lot of painful lessons over the last 9 months. I think they recognize that all three are relying on each other. Trump is not going to get his big changes without the Congress. The Congress isn't going to be successful without Trump. And I think in that sense, it's a mistake to look at the complexity of our constitutional system and then assume that that's because people don't want to help Trump. Our Constitution was designed to be really hard to get things done in order to avoid dictatorship.
Well, they did it.
And they did it.
Right.
I always tell people they did such a good job of making sure dictators couldn't run the government. We can barely do it voluntarily. But when I talk to them, and people tend to gloss over this, Mitch McConnell got 49 out of 52 Republicans to vote to repeal Obamacare. That's 3 who voted no. There were 48 Democrats who voted no. That's 16 Democrats for every Republican. So if you want to blame, quote, the establishment, you ought to start with the Democrats, because they're the ones who are constantly on every single issue blocking and slowing things down. Not the Republicans.
Right, but you know that there were, pardon me, I was just going to say, you know that all those Republicans who voted no, essentially, had said in the past, give us a chance to repeal and replace it, we'll do whatever we can. They were given the chance, they said no.
Right. So you can decide. Actually, in the case of Susan Collins, she'd been very consistent.
She was.
And she had always said she was doubtful that this was the right way to go. But so let's take 2 other Republicans. You can focus all your anger on the Republicans for these 2, or you can say, gee, if we could pick up 6 or 8 seats next year, life gets dramatically easier. Now, I'm just saying, as somebody who's been around a long time, the Reagan model would be, let's go out and take care of some of the 48 Democrats who voted no, give ourselves a bigger margin for error, and we'll get a lot more stuff done. And I understand there's a certain desire on the right to always be mad at ourselves. There's a certain group of people, frankly, who make money sending out appeals to attack ourselves. I don't, as somebody who worked with Ronald Reagan, I don't think that's the right way to do it. Well, we focused on the country, not on inside the party fighting.
Well, as Kim Streisel writes today in the Wall Street Journal, it is really 3 people. It is Collins, McCain, and Rand Paul. And they're not necessarily out to stop Donald Trump. In fact, the people that seem to be most against Donald Trump vote with him all the time. Senator Ben Sasse, as well as Senator Jeff Flake. They're always with them on issues. Their problem with them perhaps is personal. So that doesn't really make much sense. Do you fear that Steve Bannon is going to go target those out there and cause this so-called civil war on the right?
Sure. Look, I mean, Bannon's unleashed. He has several billionaires backing him. He's going to have a lot of fun. In some cases, he's going to drag the party further towards not so much right or left as it's a question of how aggressive. I'm not sure that Judge Moore is going to be dramatically more to the right than Stranger in terms of his votes, but he'll be much more aggressive, much more verbal, much more attacking and being angry. So, but that's how parties talk to themselves. Look, the Democrats have a huge crisis coming because they have Bernie Sanders carrying towards socialism in a way that the country will repudiate. We're having an internal fight, but the fight's over a very simple question. How do you drain the swamp? And I want to go back to the taxes and to this postcard. The Republican plan cuts money off from the swamp. The Republican plan puts the money back in your pocket. So if you're serious about taking on the swamp, you have to help pass the Republican tax cuts because they're a major step towards economic growth and a major step towards taking money away from the bureaucracy.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do these lawmakers care about more than anything at all is winning their reelection. Newt, always good to have you with us. Great perspective, as always.
Thank you.
All right, let's go over to Jillian Mealy for some other headlines we're following. Jillian, what's going on?
Good morning from upstairs, guys. Good morning to you at home. We want to begin right now with this. The leader of ISIS may still be alive, despite claims by the Russians that they killed him. A terrorist-run news outlet releasing audio of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi making specific threats. Earlier, CIA Station Chief Daniel Hoffman told us this could be big.
All indications are that he's alive. It's a proof of life. He purposely used references to current events like North Korea and Syria to refute the allegation that Russia had killed him in that airstrike in Raqqa back in May.
U.S. officials cannot confirm when Baghdadi recorded the tape. The Pentagon never confirmed his death. Oh, the places these books will not go. A school librarian in Massachusetts rejecting a package of Dr. Seuss books from First Lady Melania Trump, calling them racist propaganda. The librarian says the books should have been sent to other schools that needed them more. But the school district says the librarian's actions doesn't represent them. The First Lady sent book packages to schools in all 50 states to celebrate National Read a Book Day. Talk about creative freedom. A Detroit high school now going viral for allowing its seniors to dress up in costumes for their ID pictures, and the results are just hilarious. Look, this is Sarah dressed up as our commander-in-chief, and Kelsey doing an uncanny impression of Darla from the movie Finding Nemo. Jake going all out as Woody from Toy Story. The school says they let their seniors dress up every year. Gotta love it. I have to ask you guys then, if you could do that, who would you pick?
Just don't do it for the yearbook. It'll last forever. What's funny now is not funny in 10, 15, 20 years.
Oh, come on. It's hilarious.
Right.
Was that photoshopped or did they actually wear the costume?
No, they wore them.
Awesome.
Yeah, what would you two be?
I don't dress up.
I want to be a fireman.
Yeah.
But then again, Janice Dean married one.
He'll take care of all of us.
Yep.
Happy Friday. Are you guys happy it's Friday?
Absolutely. Friday all over our body.
Friday all over your body? What's your name, young lady?
My name is Dolores Westerterp, and I'm from California.
And what are you doing here on this fine Friday?
This fine Friday, I'm leaving back, unfortunately, back to my little home in Woodbridge, and had a wonderful tour and visit of
Do you want to do the weather for me?
The weather right out here now.
What's the weather here?
The weather right here is not what it was the last 5 days. The last 4 or 5 days was totally beautifully unreal.
Nicely done.
And I said, why didn't I take my jacket with me? But no, I'm not, because I'm excited.
How did she do on the weather report, everybody?
Great.
How about you? How are you doing? Where are you from?
Nebraska.
Nebraska. What's your name, honey?
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth. Say thank you so much for having me. And now back to you, Abby, Steve, and Brian. Now back to you, Abby, Steve.
Thank you so much for having me. Now back to you,
Abby,
Steve, and Brian.
Fantastic. They did it all for me. Who needs the weather person when we've got a crowd like this today?
Very good.
I love it.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Janice. It does feel like the first day of fall here.
Absolutely.
In New York
People
City.
watching in California right now, coming here to the big town, bring a coat.
Nice and cool.
Right, and grow your chest hair out. It's going to be cold.
It's great for pregnant women, I'll tell you
Right. What do the fans think of the anthem protests across the NFL?
I'm in the military. My brother's in the military. I have friends that are wrapped in the flag. I have family that's wrapped in the flag. And I just feel like if you're going to protest, that isn't the right time.
Todd Pyra went to Green Bay for Thursday night football. You don't want to miss that. He's up next.
Then, how does half off a NutriBullet sound? I've got one of those, actually. Exclusive morning mega deals just for Fox and Friends fans. Coming up live from New York City.